spiritual roots.
For hundreds of years, adventurers have been searching for the real Mount Sinai, the holy mountain where Moses led his followers at the time of the Exodus after escaping from slavery in Egypt. It was on Mount Sinai that, according to the Bible, Moses received the Ten Commandments from God.
For 3,000 years, we've been looking for Mount Sinai in the wrong place.
It was on Mount Sinai that, according to the Bible, Moses received the Ten Commandments from God, the sacred laws the Israelites would take with them to the Promised Land.
The mountain where Moses received the Ten Commandments, the most sacred and consequential site in human history, has remained a mystery, shrouded in legend, politics, and secrecy. Scholars argued, pilgrims prayed, and governments kept outsiders at bay. But now, a drone equipped with ground-penetrating radar 100 times more powerful than anything before has scanned a forbidden mountain in Saudi Arabia. And what it revealed is nothing short of extraordinary. Straight lines, hidden chambers, and geometric patterns carved beneath the rock, evidence no natural process could produce. Could this be the mountain Exodus describes? Could the story of Moses, the tablets, and a nation wandering in the desert be far closer to reality than anyone dared imagine? Today, we follow the trail of secrets that powerful institutions fought to bury and uncover a discovery that could rewrite the history of faith itself. The case for Arabia. The debate over Mount Sinai's location has raged for centuries, but most people don't realize there are two completely different candidates, and they're not even on the same continent. The traditional site, Jabal Musa in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, became the accepted location in the 4th century when Christian pilgrims began traveling to holy sites. But the original biblical text points somewhere else entirely. In the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul wrote explicitly that Mount Sinai is in Arabia. Supporters of the Arabian theory argue this wasn't symbolic language. It was a direct geographical statement placing the mountain outside Egyptian territory, across the Gulf of Aqaba, in the land the ancient world called Arabia. The argument gains strength when you follow Moses' own journey. After fleeing Egypt as a fugitive, he settled in Midian, a region located east of the Gulf of Aqaba in what is now northwestern Saudi Arabia. He married into the family of Jethro, a Midianite priest, and worked as a shepherd in that land for 40 years. It was there, in Midian, that he encountered the burning bush on the mountain of God. If Moses already knew this sacred mountain before the Exodus, then after the Israelites escaped Egypt and crossed the sea, it would make perfect sense for them to travel toward the same place, not back into Egyptian-controlled territory, but eastward into the land Moses had called home for 4 decades. The physical evidence at the Arabian candidate site, Jabal al-Lawz and the nearby Jabal Makla, is what makes researchers pause. The summit rocks are unusually dark, almost black, as if scorched by intense heat, while the surrounding mountains are ordinary granite. This connects directly to Exodus 19, which describes the mountain shaking, smoking, and burning when God descended upon it. Near the mountain's base sits a massive boulder, split cleanly in half with a smooth channel between the pieces. The surrounding landscape shows unmistakable signs of heavy water flow despite being one of the driest regions on Earth. Believers connect this to the rock Moses struck in Exodus 17, from which water miraculously flowed. A large open plain stretches before the mountain, vast enough to accommodate a massive encampment. Long lines of stones appear to mark boundaries, matching the warnings in Exodus, where the people were commanded not to touch the mountain or they would die. Near the site stands a large stone platform that appears deliberately constructed, which some identify as the altar Moses built during the covenant ceremony. Close to it sits another structure associated with the golden calf incident, with ancient petroglyphs of cattle and bulls carved into nearby rocks. A tall stone pillar stands alone, possibly one of the 12 pillars Moses erected to represent the tribes of Israel. These features form a picture that many believe aligns too precisely with the biblical account to be coincidental. The ground that was already holy. Now I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this single detail changes absolutely everything about the Mount Sinai story. It's been sitting in the book of Exodus for 3,000 years, and almost everyone misses it. When Moses approached the burning bush, when he saw that impossible flame dancing on branches that refused to turn to ash, a voice spoke to him, and that voice gave him a command. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Not will be holy ground. Not is becoming holy ground. Is present tense. Already, right now. Before Moses arrived. Before the burning bush ignited. Before any Israelite had ever set foot in that place. The ground was already sacred. This wasn't Moses stumbling onto some random mountain in the middle of nowhere and accidentally triggering a divine encounter. This was Moses walking into a place that had been recognized as holy for generations, possibly centuries, before he ever existed. The mountain of God already had that name. It already had that reputation. Someone had been worshiping there long before the children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt. And that changes how we need to think about this entire search. So who knew about this mountain? Who recognized its holiness and preserved its traditions across generations? The answer is hiding in Moses' own biography. After killing an Egyptian overseer who was beating a Hebrew slave, Moses fled Egypt as a wanted man. Pharaoh literally put a price on his head. He ran east, crossed the Sinai wilderness, and ended up in a region called Midian. Ancient sources, biblical and otherwise, consistently place Midian in what is now northwestern Saudi Arabia, near the modern town of Al-Bad. And here's where it gets interesting. Moses didn't just hide there. He built a life there. He married a woman named Zipporah. He had children. He worked for his father-in-law tending sheep. And he stayed for 40 years, 4 decades. That's not a pit stop. That's a second life. Moses spent more time as a Midianite shepherd than he ever spent as an Egyptian prince. And his father-in-law wasn't just any Midianite. He was a priest. The Bible calls him Jethro, also known as Reuel, and identifies him explicitly as a priest of Midian. Moses married into a priestly family. He lived among people whose entire culture revolved around recognizing sacred spaces, performing religious rituals, and preserving spiritual knowledge. Here's what most people don't consider. Moses wasn't wandering blindly through unfamiliar desert when he found the burning bush. He was working. He was doing his job. Exodus 3:1 says he was tending his father-in-law's flock and led them to the far side of the wilderness until he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The text already calls it the mountain of God before the burning bush, before Moses encounters anything supernatural there. The mountain had that title already. Someone gave it that name. And the most logical candidates are the Midianite priests, like Jethro, who had been living in that region and preserving its sacred traditions for generations. Moses wasn't making a discovery. He was arriving at a destination that his priest father-in-law's people had known about all along. The mountain's name itself carries whispers of its ancient past. Scholars have proposed 3 different origins for Sinai, and every single one of them points to pre-Israelite worship.
The Bible says that for 1 year, hundreds of thousands of Israelites and other followers of Moses camped at the base of the holy mountain.
The first theory connects the name to Sin, the Mesopotamian moon god. This wasn't some minor deity. Sin was worshipped across the entire ancient Near East by early Semitic peoples for thousands of years. If this etymology is correct, Mount Sinai was originally a lunar cult site, a place where desert peoples gathered under the night sky to track the moon's phases and worship its power. Many ancient sacred mountains were oriented toward celestial events, serving as natural observatories where priests could predict seasons, mark festivals, and commune with heavenly forces. The mountain may have been holy to moon worshippers for a millennium before Moses was born. The second theory links Sinai to the Hebrew word Sinai, which means thorn bush. This creates an almost poetic connection. The mountain was named for the very phenomenon Moses witnessed. And here's what makes this fascinating. Thorny desert shrubs like acacia contain volatile oils that ignite easily. Under certain conditions, extreme heat, lightning strikes, or even concentrated sunlight, these bushes can spontaneously burst into flame. In an arid environment, such fires can burn hot and fast, while the living wood, full of moisture, resists being consumed. To ancient observers, a bush burning without being destroyed would look miraculous. Perhaps this mountain had witnessed such events before. Perhaps it had earned its reputation as a place where fire appeared supernaturally, where the boundary between heaven and earth grew thin. The third interpretation places the mountain within the wilderness of sin, a geographical name possibly derived from words meaning clay or mud, describing the terrain of the surrounding desert. But here's what matters. Regardless of which etymology proves correct, they all converge on the same truth. This mountain carried sacred weight long before the Exodus. It was woven into the religious geography of the ancient world. People knew about it. People worshipped there. People passed down its traditions from generation to generation. This completely changes how we should search for the real Mount Sinai. We shouldn't be looking for a mountain that became holy in the 13th century BCE when Moses arrived. We should be looking for a mountain that was already holy, a site with clear evidence of pre-Israelite worship, a place that Midianite priests would have recognized and revered for centuries. And here's what archaeological surveys have confirmed. Midianite religious activity absolutely existed throughout northwestern Saudi Arabia during the late Bronze Age, the exact period we're talking about. Researchers have found distinctive Midianite pottery with red-on-buff geometric designs, copper smelting operations, stone altar platforms, and gathering sites that cluster around specific locations. These weren't random campsites. They were religious centers for a semi-nomadic priestly culture that understood their landscape as spiritually charged terrain. If Moses really did encounter the burning bush at Jabal al-Lawz or a nearby peak in Saudi Arabia, he wasn't converting a secular mountain into sacred space. He was experiencing divine revelation at a site his father-in-law's people had venerated for generations. The holiness predated him. The traditions predated Israel. And that ancient sanctity, that pre-existing reverence, might be exactly why the divine presence chose to manifest there. God didn't pick a random peak in the middle of nowhere. God chose ground that humanity had already recognized as thin space, territory where heaven and earth pressed dangerously close together. The ground was already holy before Moses took off his sandals. The mountain already had a name before the Israelites knew it existed. The Midianite priests, including Moses' own father-in-law, had been guarding this knowledge for generations. So the real question isn't just where Mount Sinai is. The real question is, what did the Midianites know? What ancient traditions were they preserving? And if this mountain was sacred long before the Exodus, what made it that way in the first place? What happened there that convinced generations of desert priests they were standing on holy ground? That's the mystery no one is talking about, and it might be the key to finding the mountain itself. Why the evidence disappeared, critics of the Exodus point to a glaring problem. Where's the evidence? If hundreds of thousands of Israelites camped at a mountain for an entire year, shouldn't archaeologists find something? The answer reveals more about how evidence survives than about whether events occurred. The Israelites at Sinai were not city builders, settlers, or farmers. They were nomadic shepherd families living in tents and moving from place to place. According to the Bible, they stayed at the mountain for approximately 1 year, a period so brief that in archaeological terms, it leaves almost nothing behind. A city leaves walls, workshops, temples, and burial grounds. A nomadic camp leaves traces so faint they're nearly invisible after 35 centuries. Archaeologists identify 4 types of remains such a group might leave, each of which naturally disappears over millennia. First, hearthstones and cooking fires. Daily meals require small stone circles for fire pits, but wind scatters ash. Rain disperses stones and animals trample the ground. After thousands of years, cooking fires leave almost no trace, often only slight soil discoloration that vanishes within seasons. Second, post holes and stone lines. Tent poles leave small round holes detectable only through extremely careful excavation. Stone lines that guided animals or marked small enclosures are even harder to identify because later shepherds, traders, and nomads disturbed or reused the same stones, erasing original patterns. Third, pottery fragments. Pottery is usually the strongest evidence archaeologists rely on, but nomads carried very little, just simple bowls, small jars, and cooking pots. When these broke, the pieces scattered across vast desert areas. Over millennia, the fragments mixed with pottery from countless later travelers, making them impossible to assign to one specific group. Fourth, organic waste. Any biological material from the Israelites, food scraps, waste, animal remains, would have been destroyed completely by bacteria, insects, and time in open desert environments. Even if hundreds of hearths, thousands of pottery fragments, and many tent marks once existed, they would have been spread across an enormous plain. Over the centuries, the same area was visited by Bedouin herders, traders, soldiers, pilgrims, and other nomads, all leaving similar traces. Today, archaeologists find a mixture of remains from many eras, making the evidence of a single one-year camp nearly impossible to isolate. The missing evidence is therefore exactly what experts expect from a mobile population that stayed briefly. The problem isn't that the Israelites left nothing. It's that their traces look identical to everyone else's. The silence from Egyptian records presents a separate issue, but one with an equally logical explanation. Egyptian writing served royal propaganda, not objective history. Monuments displayed the pharaoh's power, never his failures. Events showing defeat were deliberately omitted. The Abai, Hyksos expulsion, one of Egypt's most significant political upheavals, produced no contemporary inscriptions and is known only from later accounts. The case of Akhenaten is even more striking. After his death, later rulers erased his name, smashed his statues, and rewrote history to eliminate him completely.
When the discovery of the Nefertiti bust was announced to the world, it revived the memory of a queen, all but forgotten for 3,000 years.
If Egyptians erased their own kings, they would certainly erase any event showing a foreign god defeating them. If the Exodus occurred as described, plagues, failed magicians, the death of the firstborn, including the royal heir, mass slave escape, and the destruction of the chariot force, no Egyptian scribe would ever record such humiliation. The silence in Egyptian records isn't surprising. It's precisely what historians expect. The pattern of vanishing peoples. History records many disappearances, but few are as striking as the loss of an entire nation. In 722 BCE, the Assyrian Empire invaded the northern kingdom of Israel, and 10 of the 12 tribes vanished from history. This second exodus provides a template for understanding how populations disappear without leaving visible ruins. The Assyrian conquest under Shalmaneser V and Sargon II was deliberate and systematic. Their imperial policy was to uproot populations, scatter them across distant provinces, and erase their identity. Archaeology confirms the violence. Excavations at sites like Gezer show smashed walls, burned buildings, layers of ash, and arrowheads left where soldiers fell over 2,700 years ago. The northern kingdom didn't decline slowly. It collapsed under military force. The Bible states that almost the entire northern population was removed, leaving only the southern kingdom of Judah. This produced the legend of the 10 lost tribes. Modern research shows the reality was more complex. While many were deported, thousands of Israelites remained in the land, continued farming, rebuilt small settlements, and eventually formed part of the group known as Samaritans, who preserved fragments of Israelite tradition. Meanwhile, those who were exiled vanished into the Assyrian world. Families were separated, languages blended, customs slowly dissolved. These people didn't die out. They simply stopped appearing in records as a distinct nation. Their disappearance through assimilation, survival without identity, is the heart of the mystery. The Assyrian exile forms a clear parallel to the Exodus.
Assyrian Empire in the 7th century before Christ from his capital city of Nineveh.
In the first case, the Israelites left Egypt and disappeared into the desert, leaving almost no physical evidence. In the second, they were removed from their homeland and dissolved into a foreign empire, leaving almost no cultural trace. One disappearance is geographic, the other is demographic. Together they demonstrate how an entire population can fade without leaving ruins behind. Over time, tradition suggested the lost tribes didn't remain in Assyria, but moved eastward along desert trade routes linking Mesopotamia and Arabia. These routes, including the incense and silk roads, were marked by caravans and fortified stations spaced roughly 30 to 40 kilometers apart, offering shelter, water, and markets along harsh desert corridors. If small groups of exiles traveled through these areas, their remains would blend with countless traces of traders, nomads, and pilgrims who used the same paths. The same deserts that hid the movement from Egypt could hide the dispersion from Israel. What the scans actually found. Archaeologists working in northwestern Arabia have uncovered settlement traces that illuminate the Midianites, the people among whom Moses lived before the Exodus. The Midianites were a semi-nomadic population, active from the late Bronze Age into the early Iron Age. Their presence is marked not by large cities, but by small encampments, mining outposts, and trade route stations. Excavations reveal structures built on simple stone foundations along with enclosures for livestock. A major line of evidence comes from Midianite painted pottery, identified by its distinctive red-on buff colors and geometric designs. These fragments, scattered across former habitation areas, serve as reliable chronological markers. Radiocarbon dating of associated hearths places many sites between the 15th and 13th centuries BCE, a period that aligns with traditional Exodus timelines. Industrial activity appears alongside domestic remains. Excavations have uncovered smelting debris including slag and furnace fragments, confirming the extraction and processing of copper and other metals. Historical sources describe metalworking as characteristic of this region, and archaeological evidence supports that record. Mining sites were situated near seasonal water sources with small settlements forming around these industrial hubs. Stone structures provide additional insight. Rectangular foundations, low walls, and small enclosures dot the terrain. Circular or oval stone arrangements appear to be tent bases or temporary shelters. Their sparse distribution reflects a social structure built around family groups and small trading parties rather than centralized authority. Water management features, channels, cisterns, and stone-lined depressions demonstrate careful adaptation to the arid environment. The biblical itinerary of the Exodus lists locations such as Elim, Rephidim, and Taberah. Archaeologists note these were likely seasonal encampments rather than permanent towns, consistent with Midianite settlement patterns. Sites that correspond geographically to these locations contain minimal architecture, scattered pottery, and hearth remains, suggesting movement guided by water, grazing, and established trade routes. The trade routes themselves leave a measurable archaeological footprint. Caravan paths connected northwestern Arabia with the Gulf of Aqaba, the southern Levant, and northern Arabia. Along these corridors, researchers have documented fortified way stations, storage pits, and animal enclosures. The presence of Midianite artifacts confirms their participation in regional exchange networks. The 2025 drone scans added a new dimension to this evidence. Ground-penetrating radar revealed anomalies beneath the surface that don't match natural geological formations. Straight lines, buried chambers, geometric patterns suggesting constructed spaces rather than random rock. Stone platforms near the mountain match the expected markers of temporary cultic activity. Movable altars, simple boundary structures, communal gathering points. The blackened summit rocks, the split boulder with water erosion, the boundary stones, the altar platform, the cattle petroglyphs. Each individual feature might be explained away. Together, they form a pattern that demands explanation. Either this is the most remarkable series of coincidences in archaeological history, or we've been looking for Mount Sinai in the wrong place for 16 centuries. For thousands of years, the mountain of God has been hidden in plain sight, its secrets buried beneath sand, stone, and centuries of human assumption. Now, for the first time, technology is pointing to a place that matches the biblical account with uncanny precision. But access remains locked, and the answers we seek are just out of reach. If what lies beneath that Arabian peak is real, it could reshape everything we thought we knew about the Exodus, about history, and about the way empires control truth. The question that lingers is simple and chilling. Will we ever be allowed to uncover what's been hidden for millennia, or will humanity's most enduring mystery remain buried forever? The story isn't over. It's only just begun.